Most people think the house always wins. They think it's mathematics, clean, inevitable, baked into the system. And for 99.9% of the people who walk onto a casino floor, that's exactly true. But there's a corner case, a rare convergence of wealth, leverage, and timing that can flip the equation so violently, so completely, that the house doesn't just lose, it collapses. And that's exactly what happened at the Crown Casino in Melbourne, Australia in the early 2000s. One man, one game, $107 million, and a casino that, not long after, found itself drowning. Let me take you back to the 90s. Australia is booming. The economy is riding high, property money is flowing, and Melbourne's Crown Casino opens its doors in 1994 as one of the most ambitious gambling complexes ever built in the Southern Hemisphere. It's enormous. It sits right on the Yarra River. Restaurants, a hotel, hundreds of machines, VIP rooms, the full Cathedral of Risk. And from the beginning, Crown is chasing whales. That's the business model. You don't build a casino that size by catering to tourists dropping $50 at the blackjack table. You build it for the rare, extraordinary player who shows up with millions in their bankroll and a willingness to put it all in motion. Enter Akio Kashiwagi. Kashiwagi, if you've never heard that name, write it down. He was a Japanese real estate developer based in Tokyo, enormously wealthy, obsessively private, and he had a particular addiction, not to alcohol, not to luxury, to Baccarat, specifically to high-stakes Baccarat at a level that made pit bosses nervous just watching him buy in. This was a man who thought nothing of sitting down with $5 million, $10 million, $20 million on the table. Casinos around the world, Vegas, Atlantic City, London, they called him the Warrior. Because watching Akio Kashiwagi play Baccarat was less like watching a gambler and more like watching a military campaign. Cold, methodical, enormous. Now here's a detail most people skip over. Kashiwagi had a system, not a cheat, not an exploit, just a structured approach to riding the shoe. He made massive flat wagers, meaning he didn't frantically press his bets or reduce them based on superstition. He stayed disciplined. And because he was wagering at limits that most casinos had never even considered, the house edge, that mathematical sword hanging over every player, was still there. 0.5%, maybe less. But on swings of tens of millions of dollars per session, 0.5% is almost meaningless in the short run. The variance is enormous, the swings are violent, and the casino has to have the bankroll to absorb those swings, which not every casino does. This is where Crown made its mistake. Crown wanted Kashiwagi badly. They went after him on a junket arrangement that was frankly extraordinary. Private flights, a suite that cost more per night than most people earn in a year. Every comp imaginable. They wanted him in the room, wanted the prestige of hosting the Warrior, wanted the theoretical win that their models projected if he played long enough. And he came, several visits, and the early sessions were volatile. Some losses for him, some losses for the house. Exactly the kind of back and forth you'd expect when a man is wagering at limits this high. But then came the session, and here's where it gets genuinely extraordinary. Kashiwagi sat down, he played, and the shoe, that simple mechanical box holding 8 decks of cards, refused to cooperate with the house. He ran. Not just a winning session, a catastrophic winning session from Crown's perspective. Hand after hand turned in his favor. The Baccarat table, which is supposed to be the most reliable earner in the entire casino because the house edge is clean and consistent, became a nightmare. The pit boss was watching. The eye in the sky was watching. Everyone was watching. And there was nothing anyone could do, because this wasn't a cheat. This wasn't edge sorting. This wasn't card counting. You can't count cards in Baccarat in any meaningful way. This was pure, brutal variance. And on the scale that Kashiwagi was wagering, pure variance can look like an act of God. He walked out with $107 million. $107 million. From a single property. Crown had never absorbed a loss like that in their history. The casino's operational structure, already carrying significant debt from construction and the launch, simply did not have the liquidity to absorb a $100 million hit in one sitting. It went into freefall. The company behind Crown ended up in a restructuring that eventually pushed them to the edge of bankruptcy. Not entirely because of Kashiwagi, but he was the crack in the foundation that everything else fell through. The hold percentage for that quarter was a catastrophe. The drop numbers meant nothing when the house had surrendered more than most casinos earn in a year. Now, look, Kashiwagi's story doesn't end neatly. Back in Japan in 1992, before all of this, he was found murdered in his villa in Atami, stabbed multiple times. The case was never officially solved, though investigators suspected connections to gambling debts with organized crime. He wasn't just winning from casinos, he was also losing, elsewhere, to people far less patient than a corporation. The violence of the high roller world isn't always metaphorical. And here's what this story reveals about how casinos actually work. The house doesn't just set the math and walk away. They have to manage exposure. They have to manage the maximum potential loss on any given night. Any competent risk manager at a casino will tell you, you cap the bet or you cap the access. You do not let a single player run up a position that could existentially threaten the operation. Crown broke that rule. They wanted the prestige, wanted the action, wanted to be the casino that hosted the warrior. And the price of that ego was 9 figures. The full story of Akio Kashiwagi is already on this channel. The debts, the violence, the mythology, everything that made this man one of the most extraordinary figures in gambling history. That episode goes much deeper than this single visit to Melbourne. It's already up, and it's worth your time. Now, back to the question of Crown itself. Crown eventually survived. They restructured, brought in new investors, rebuilt. Today, the Crown brand is one of the biggest in Australia. You may have followed the controversy in recent years around licensing inquiries and money laundering allegations, which is an entirely separate story. But the scars of that session in the early 2000s shaped how they, and frankly how casinos worldwide, rethought their whale exposure policies. The maximum table limits in high roller rooms everywhere got tighter after Kashiwagi. The lesson was expensive. $107 million expensive. If this kind of story is what you come here for, you already know what to do. What Kashiwagi pulled off, the thing that separates his story from every other big win you've ever heard, is that he didn't trick the house. He didn't find a loophole. He showed up, played the game exactly as designed, and broke the casino through sheer scale and an extraordinary run of variance. The mathematics were still against him. The house edge was still real. He just bet big enough and ran hot enough that the house couldn't survive the swing. And that's the brutal truth about gambling at this level. The math doesn't care about either side. It doesn't protect the casino when the stakes climb high enough. Its only protection is volume. Thousands, millions of hands played across thousands of players. One man, one table, one night, and the whole model can shatter. Here's the question I want to leave you with. Crown let Kashiwagi play at limits their own bankroll couldn't absorb, chasing the upside while ignoring the downside. So, was their collapse the story of one extraordinary gambler, or the story of a corporation that got greedy and outsmarted itself? Drop your answer below. I'd genuinely like to know where you land on that.